it's Anika from Living for Later. If you look behind me, I have a vase filled with some beautiful flowers, and there's an even more beautiful story behind it. So I had a really great Mother's Day. I really did. My husband did a great job of honoring me, and my children, most of them made me homemade cards and cute little gifts, which that's totally my cup of tea. I love homemade things and I love thoughtful words. So I was feeling really good most of the week. And then yesterday, I received some news that really kind of threw me, and it came through a text, and I was trying to process the text. And then in addition to that, my children, we just had a really rough morning. And I know you're like, didn't you just talk about this in another video recently about a rough morning? And yeah, the reality is things don't always go well over here in our household. Some mornings are just really rough, and this was one of those mornings. So I was dealing with processing the news of the text the news from the text that I received. In addition, my children they were not cooperating. There was one child in particular who I just was like, you know what, I'm at a loss here. I don't even know what else to do, because you're just not responding in the proper way. So I was feeling overwhelmed, and I have just been so determined to not lose my mind and start screaming and just carrying on and on and on. So I do what I do, and I just was lifting my heart to the Lord, and I just became very silent, because I knew that if I opened my mouth to speak to them, that there would be an outburst of wrath, right? There would be a lot of anger that would come out, because like I said, I was processing the news and then dealing with their attitudes. It was just too much. So I knew that I needed to keep silent. So quietly, I was lifting my heart to the Lord. And after they all left for school, I went and was just praying and crying and just pouring it all out to the Lord, because I was feeling overwhelmed. Quite honestly, I was. I love being a mother, but there are some days that I don't like it. I really don't. And this was one of those mornings where it was just like, this is absolutely rough. And it happens more than once. But thank God that we can run to Jesus and tell him all that's on our heart. So anyway, I just was praying and crying and just letting the Lord know how I was feeling. And just how overwhelmed I was feeling, and even how inadequate I was feeling, because I just didn't even know how to respond to this one particular child and the attitude. I just didn't know what to do. So I was just telling the Lord, I feel extremely inadequate, and I don't know how to process this news, and just crying, going on and on and on. So by midday, I was just exhausted. I really was, and I think it was just more emotionally exhausted. And I went to try to take a nap, and 10 minutes into trying to take a nap, my doorbell rang, and I was just like, oh, I'm thinking that it's the mailman or something. So I was like, okay, they'll go away when no one comes to the door. Well, the doorbell ended up being, somebody ended up ringing the doorbell again. So 3 times. So I'm like, okay, clearly it's somebody that's trying to get my attention. So I got up out of the bed and looked out my bedroom window, and I saw the truck of a sweet sister that goes to our church. And I just lifted up the window and yelled out that, I was on my way down. So I came downstairs, and when I opened the door, she was standing there with a smile on her face, and she had a bouquet of flowers. And I was just kind of caught off guard, and I was like, what's this for? And she goes, oh, no reason. And she gave me a hug, smiled, turned around, and left. And after I got the flowers, went and I sat on my couch, and I just started crying. And the Lord just really began to minister to me, and he was just telling me, Anika, I saw the tears that you cried this morning. I saw how overwhelmed you were feeling, and I felt like in that moment God was just giving me a hug. And I was so overwhelmed, because I was yet again reminded of how personal God is and how very real he is. Only a real God could respond to me in the way that he did in that moment. Like, it was just mind-blowing that the creator of the universe gives audience to me, and then he in his own way sent somebody to comfort me, and she didn't even realize the magnitude of what she was doing. I'm so grateful that she followed the prompting of the Lord, because God knew that in that moment I needed a hug. I needed just that affirmation, and it was just such a beautiful thing. So I want to end there, and I just want to encourage you. Number one, that if you're going through moments of difficulties, and this is what I've recognized with life, some days it's gonna be really high, and then other days you're gonna hit lows. That's just the ebb and flow of life. But you don't have to allow the low to overwhelm you or overtake you, but you can bring it all to God. And I've said this before, but I have to say it again, because I was yet again reminded that when I am feeling this way, as opposed to sulking and going inside of myself, I need to come and just put it all before the Lord, and then just sit back and watch Him comfort in ways that only He can. So I just want to encourage you to not be discouraged if you have low moments. That's just the reality of life. But you don't have to stay in those low moments, and you don't have to process those low moments on your own. You can bring it to God and just even receive His response. So again, I want to end with just this scripture from Psalms 34:18, where it talks about how the Lord is near to the broken-hearted, and that He hears and He sees those with a crushed spirit. So God is just that awesome. Why wouldn't I serve Him? All right, you be blessed.